Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves, just outside Louisville, Kentucky. Back home in Maryland is my esteemed friend, longtime buddy, and Notre Dame pitchman, John Webster. Sorry about that. I know that was clumsy, John, but I ran out of adjectives to describe your Notre Dame fandom.
Gary, you really know how to ruin a party, man. I got a dear friend on here, and thing you want to talk about is South Bend, but you know that's okay, man. That's
you
okay.
Want to talk about South Bend? I'm just here for the ride, you know.
Hey, man, but thanks, man. I'm glad to be here today. It's been another great week in sports. Had a great time watching a lot of different things this weekend. I know everybody's excited down in Lexington, Kentucky, Gary. Kentucky pulled off a big one and beat University of Florida. It's got to be a national holiday down there, man. Has to be.
Oh yeah, there's still some folks down here celebrating. I'll tell you, compared to the 1-3 years ago, this one I think was more of a slog than anything else. That one a few years ago, that was a breakthrough win. Still, to beat Florida when you're Kentucky and you haven't beaten them much over the past 40 years, to beat them at any time is great, even if it's by a touchdown. And this is a win that they needed to really kind of, I'd say, jumpstart their plans of challenging Georgia in the East. Again, you have to get past Florida before you can think about Georgia. You can't let down against anybody now, but that was like an important first step in the division to beat a nemesis and to really do it at home.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you still have LSU and Georgia on the schedule.
Oh yeah. LSU is no joke. LSU is smarting from losing to Auburn on Saturday night. If Kentucky's going to prove itself and wants to be a contender, they really have to get through this gauntlet. And it sets up just the way that it needs to set up: Florida, LSU, and then Georgia in Athens between the hedges.
That's a big burger from Wendy's right there, Gary. That's a lot. That's a lot, man. But we're going to talk a little bit about that later on, I know, as well. We'd be remiss if we didn't say hello to our producer, Mr. John Pitt. Hey, Big John.
Hey, man, the Dallas Cowboys are winning, and we have another special guest. I'm excited, man. It's a good Monday.
Oh, man, it's a good weekend for you, John. I know it. That was impressive yesterday, even though they made it a little tense at the end.
John, all I can say is I'm happy for you, my friend. I see you some days when Dallas is losing, and the melancholy that is written on your face is so unfortunate. So I know how happy you are right now. I hope you can continue to be happy, John.
Okay, cut. We got to do this from the top. I'm joking.
All right. Hey, look, we've been talking. We have somebody else right here on the screen with us. We need to introduce this guy, Gary. Friend of mine for 25, 30 years. I tell you, he was a friend of mine when I still had hair, Gary. So that's a long, long time ago. Probably when he had hair too. Gary, yeah, when all of us had hair. But this guy,
and I tip my cap to you, Discombobulating.
This guy is simply one of the best. He is a ring announcer, second to none. He has been through it. He has struggles, and he's come through it. He's done a lot of great things in professional boxing as a ring announcer, and we're going to talk about today. And he's got a great story to share. One and only, my dear friend, Henry Discombobulating Jones.
We're ready to do it, so let's step to it. Have me, Jim.
That sounds good. Hey, look, I wanted to do that. I couldn't remember exactly all the words, so I was going to chop it up. So I figured it's better just to let you do it, Discombobulating.
Well, I'm glad you didn't, because I have it copywritten, and I could have sued you just like Michael Buffer sues people for the Let's Get Ready to Rumble. So don't get it.
Well, I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad I didn't do it, because if you sue me, all I got is the lint in my pockets. I ain't got any money.
John, you got lint, man. You're making big money.
Hey, let's get to it,
I
man.
can't even afford lint.
Let's talk about it, Discombobulating. You've been around a long time. How did you get involved in the ring game? What took you to the path of being a ring announcer? I know a little bit about your history and you being an understudy in a lot of school plays when you were in school. I know that was part of it. I don't want to tell your story. You go ahead and tell it.
Yeah, well, that was part and parcel of it. I secured this route for sure to get to this point. And as you said, I was the understudy for 4 straight years, going through junior high school to high school, to the main character, always a white male. And this is important for this story. So I never did get a chance to get on stage, but I had this photographic memory. I could read a script and tell you what page a word was on. So I was always behind the scenes, literally behind the wings, waiting in the wings behind the curtains, whispering the lines to the actors and actresses when they forget their lines. So I guess I was traumatized from that period of time. And when I got to DC in 82, I started venturing into a lot of other things to try to fulfill that void. So I tried to be a color commentator for boxing, but they only wanted Sugar Ray Leonard and George Foreman at the time. I answered an ad in Sports Illustrated to be a color commentator for the ABA, Red, White, and Blue League.
Yep. Okay.
From Philadelphia for the tryouts, and I finished 3rd. Out of 300 people, I finished 3rd, right? So that gave me a little bit more confidence. So I thought about it. I said, I've been watching boxing all my life. There's only 2 people. I've been really living through them vicariously. I kind of know that sport better than any. So I went to the DC Boxing Commission with the idea to be, again, a color commentator locally. And the deputy commissioner at the time, may rest in peace now, named Mr. Gilbert Ware, said, well, we don't have any TV contracts, but obviously you're articulate, you know about boxing. If you want to be on the microphone, why not be the ring announcer? I said, no, I wasn't thinking about that. And then he said something that gave me that epiphany moment. You can only see something for yourself. And the light bulb went off in my head. He said, there have never been any major black ring announcers of prominence that anybody knows in the entire history of boxing. That blew my mind. And I said, wow. And I thought about it. I said, yeah, you're right. I've never seen a black man introduce anybody. He said, somebody's got to be the first one. So why don't you take the challenge? So here it is 33 years later. I took the challenge and I've become the most prominent black ring announcer in the history of boxing. Thank God.
Man, I tell you, that's something else. And Gary, I don't know if you had a chance to be to any of Discombobulating's events, but it's a show in itself, man. You got to go. Or I tell you what, I'll give you another one. And HJ, I'm sorry. Y'all have to forgive me. I know him a long time. I'll slip up every now and then, say Discombob, instead of saying Discombobulating, I'll say HJ. So y'all please forgive me with that. But many years ago, I used to have a teen night at one of the recreation centers I had. Discombobulating came out and talked to the teens and put on one unbelievable speaking engagement to them where I could hear a pin drop in the room. And these teens that I had, I loved each and every one of them, but they could do some things to get on your nerves, but they sat and they listened to everything Discombobulating said. And it's an unbelievable presentation. I don't even know if you still do it or not, Discombobulating, but you used to have it was an unbelievable presentation you used to have for kids.
I still do. I never stop and never will, because certainly sometimes the only testimony they hear is yours, ours. And so I try to just sprinkle them with some words of wisdom that would carry them through life. So I'm glad you brought that up, man, because I didn't remember that you remembered.
Absolutely. You came in that Friday night, Gary. He came in there clean as a chitlin, had on a tux, and came in there and spoke.
That's right.
Hey, I'm old and I'm bald headed, but I ain't forgetful, Discombobulating. I still remember something.
I see.
But I greatly appreciate you being in my life and everything that you've done to support some of the things we're doing. And I definitely, like I said, Gary, if you haven't been to one of the events, you need to get there and see him. He is unbelievable. Simply one of the best. Man, tell us a little bit about some of the fights you've had. So, tell us a little bit about that, man. Tell us, and also, man, tell us about some of the struggles too, man.
Yeah. I think probably the most memorable fight card I announced, and Michael Buffer, as you said, has been my mentor. So he's had me on stage at Madison Square Garden. I opened up Radio City Music Hall when Roy Jones fought there, Atlantic City, these places, Philadelphia, Blue Horizon. So one night, it was an HBO fight card at Madison Square Garden, and he brought me in to do the undercard. And it turned out to be the worst riot in boxing history. It was Riddick Bowe and Andrew.
My goodness. Was that the Galata fight?
That was the Galata fight, July 12th, 1996, indelibly etched in my memory. It was vicious. Man, yep. People was going at it. And Polish contingent, they allowed them at the time to bring the flags into the venue. Mm-hmm. I saw guys get rammed in the throat with the flag, with the point of the flag. Shannon Briggs was there, former heavyweight champ, picked up a guy like he was Hercules and body slammed him. Mm-hmm. Another guy picked up the folding metal chairs and threw it like a disc and hit somebody in the head, knocked him out. A lot of the fans were going after Larry Merchant and Jim Bentley. They hid behind Big George Foreman.
I remember.
On YouTube, and you'll see me in the ring trying to restore some sense of order. And so Big George said, "Back up now, son. I wouldn't do that if I was you." Back up. And they were so appreciative. They gave Big George Foreman the biggest color commentary contract in history. Mm-hmm. My daughter was there at the time. She was 15 years old. Mm-hmm. I was so worried about her. And she had the presence of mind to run out of the venue, which was very smart. But man, that was the most fearful I've ever been in my life. Because it was just wanton destruction everywhere you look. Lou Duver, if you remember Lou Duver, trainer, heart attack. They're carrying him out on a stretcher. People grabbing his wrist, taking off his watch, and his fingers taking off his rings. It was bizarre all night, man. So that's the most memorable. The most pleasurable happened at the DC Armory, February 22nd, 1998, when our local fighter champion, Mark T. Sharp Johnson, wrote it in his contract for me to be his ring announcer on ESPN. He handwritten He had handwritten it in his contract. They signed off on it. So the night before the fight at the weigh-in, he told the ESPN production crew, he said, "Oh, by the way, this is going to be my ring announcer tomorrow night." They said, "Oh, no, we got that covered. We bring somebody." He said, "No, you signed the contract." Oh, man, they did not like that sleight of hand. So they tried to put me in a trick bag. They said, "Oh, okay. Okay, Jones, we have somebody at ringside with cue cards for you." I knew nobody was going to be at ringside cue card. They wouldn't have set me up to fail. So, of course, just like you said earlier, I do my homework. And it just went so smooth to the point. And Mark knocked the guy out in the first round. Mm-hmm. Afterwards, the promoter at the time, Cedric Kushner, may he rest in peace now, came up to me, said, "This was a fantastic night." I said, "Yeah, Mark is probably on the pound for pound list, one of the best." He said, "He is, but I'm talking about you too." He said, "You had command of the crowd and made everything seem exciting all night, and you knew how to ad lib when we had downtime." He said, "You want to go on the road with us?" I said, "What's the trick question or something?" He said, "No." He said, "We're going up to Atlantic City next." So I went up to Atlantic City for Mark's next bout. And the main event was a guy named Ike Ibeabuchi. Do you remember that heavyweight?
Yep, I sure do. Yep.
Railroaded in Vegas, and they put him in a mental asylum. But he could have been probably one of the best of all time. And that was his last fight that I announced. It was on ESPN. So, man, yeah, it's a lot of stories like that, good, bad, and the ugly, but all of it for a reason. So, yeah, I'm just glad to have gone through all of it because it's a total experience.
You mentioned Michael Buffer, and he's a mentor to you, right?
That's correct.
Your autobiography. Didn't Michael Buffer do the foreword for your autobiography?
Did. It's called It's More Than a Notion, because things that happen to you or for you are not purely coincidence. Things happen for reasons.
Okay.
And when he wrote the foreword for it, he was glad to do it. Because he asked me one night, let's just speak truth to power here, because that's the only way I live. We had a fight card at RFK Stadium, probably 1993. It was Roy Jones against Bernard Hopkins. The main event was Riddick Bowe against Jesse Ferguson out of Philadelphia. So after it was all over, Michael Buffer asked me, he said, got a question for you. I said, yeah, what? He said, why won't your brothers, and this is verbatim, why won't your brothers, Don King and Rock Newman, help you?
Wow.
Man, look, in that moment, that changed my whole way of thinking about race relations, because I realized it's not about color, it's about character. A man that don't even look like me, didn't have to help me, was the one that was helping me the most. And brothers that do look like me, not that they owe me anything, don't get it twisted, but why would you not want to help somebody? That's what other races do. That's what we don't do. And I could never understand that, because I wasn't raised like that, especially if it doesn't cost you anything. And matter of fact, it's going to elevate your status in other people's eyes and bring some revenue to you. I'm a prolific ticket seller, man. One year in DC, when Lamont Peterson fought Amir Khan, I personally sold for Oscar De La Hoya Promotions $33,000 worth of tickets myself at only 10%, to let them see I was an asset, not a liability. Never heard from them again. So apparently it's my pigmentation and my paper that certain people don't like. I don't get it.
Let me get this right, because I didn't spend a lot of time in my math class, man, fellas. So let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly here. You sold $33,000 worth of tickets for Amir Khan and Lamont Peterson fight. I remember that. That was back in DC a few years ago. And you didn't get a phone call back about anything, nothing but crickets?
That's it. That's it. Put over $30,000 in their hands, man. Huh? Who else gonna do that? What other ring announcer could do that? Nobody. Buffer doesn't have to do it. Jimmy Lennon doesn't have to do it. And no other ring announcer can do it.
Which is more reason why, if I'm promoting, I want you with me, because you're going to put some more dollars in my pocket.
And that's why I go around the country announcing now for promoters who have that vision. So I got a contract. I go to Philly every month. I go to Rochester, New York next month. I go to Atlanta every 3 months. DC, Maryland, Virginia is opening up back October 23rd. I'll be at Maryland Live Casino. October 29th, I'll be at DC, where the Mystics play at the Entertainment and Sports Arena. I'll be in Virginia at George Mason University December 4th. So I get work, and, I'm appreciative of the promoters that appreciate me. And fortunately, I'm in a position now I could tell other promoters, thanks, but no thanks. I don't work for chicken feed. You can get somebody else. I know my worth. I know who I am. More importantly, I know whose I am.
Discombobulating, I mean, I've just been listening, riveted to some of these stories, the names that you mentioned, and some of these memorable fights. And I guess from your standpoint, now I'm asking this as a sports writer, and there's a certain cynicism that we look at the boxing world with, because for people like yourself and the fighters themselves. We hear about these big paydays, but it's like these local fights where the guys are really, just trying to really put food on the table. And they become kind of cynical, I guess, with a craft that they love. And it is a craft. And including, what you do. how have you been able to really stay motivated, not become cynical like that, especially when you wonder, like, if somebody's got their hand in your pocket?
Good question, Gary Graves. So I had to finally let go and let God. As I realized my mother, before she passed, she said, now you go back to those two guys, Newman, Don King, and you forgive them. I said, what? She said, yeah, because you holding yourself back, honey. She said, I don't care about you, obviously. And, she said, so you got to forgive them so you can let go. And once I did that, man, things just opened up. Matter of fact, I announced in China, not Chinatown. They appreciated the only black ring announcer in the United States and brought me over there for Manny Pacquiao promotions, So that's the way I've been able to stay above reproach. And fortunately, I've not had to sell my firstborn per se, to get to this point, like other people. Boxing is a dirty sport, man. Some people, forgive my French, would sell their mother for $1, okay, to get to the top. I've not done that. I've never will do that. Maybe that's why I hadn't gotten as far along, maybe, as some people think. But as my mother told me, what God got for me, no man could stop. They can only delay. So here it is 33 years later. A lot of people are out of the game. I'm hitting my stride. This is my fourth quarter going into overtime.
Yeah. So what is your general impression about the state of boxing now? I mean, especially, we're in an age where UFC seems to be getting the headlines, a lot of the attention, and boxing, I guess if you went down the street right now, I don't know if anybody could tell you who the heavyweight champion is because of how boxing maybe has kind of taken a lesser profile to UFC. I mean, do you still see it as what it is, or what do you think if you were in charge of boxing for a day, what would you do?
That's exactly right. No, that's how it has been historically. Ebbs and flows, lows, down period, and then it's a polarizing figure that comes on the scene to bring it back to its prominence. And as they say, as go the heavyweight champion, as go the heavyweight champion, so goes boxing. You're right. Most people wouldn't know it's Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder and the guy who just beat Anthony Joshua. But we have a new generation of fighters coming up. Now, we used to, at one time in DC proper, have more world champions and world-class contenders than any city in the world.
I used to cover one, Simon Brown, back in the day.
Maurice Blocker, Sean Bay,
him too.
William Joppy, Keith Holmes, DeMarcus Chop Corley. List goes on and on. We had TV.
You forgot the best one, Discombobulating. You forgot the all-time best one that you know who I'm going to say. You forgot.
You're right. But what is now, since you brought that up, and then Gary, I'm gonna get back to your question. Sugar Ray didn't really fight in DC proper. He fought out at the Capitol Center maybe 1 or 2 times, and that was it. Okay, so that's your guy. I know it is, but he was Hollywood more than he was, real. But we have a new generation now, Gary. And Baltimore is leading the way. So
Baltimore has some great boxers.
Yeah.
Floyd Mayweather has gone over to Baltimore and signed up a bunch of guys. And of course, his star is Gervonta Tank Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Gervonta stay out of his own way, he could be one of the best of all time. I've been knowing him since he was a teenager. And I saw the skill set then. He was knocking out grown men when he was a teenager. So the power is real from the start, and I foresee nothing but great things for him. I announced his pro debut at Coppin State, and at the time, the athletic director, I think, was from Kentucky, a black quarterback. He went to the NFL, but they, I think, put him at tight end.
I'm trying to remember if it's a guy from Kentucky State whose name I forget, but yeah,
Kentucky State. Yeah.
yeah.
So he was Derek something. Derek.
Yeah, that sounds familiar, but I can't recall the last name, and I'm listening to your stories to look him up right now.
He became all pro, I think, with the Raiders, But anyway, the point being, Baltimore is leading that resurgence, and the biggest fight that can be made, really, in the lighter weight division would be Gervonta Tank Davis over in Baltimore against our local guy here from Capitol Heights named Mr. Gary Russell. It would fill Capitol Arena, FedEx Field, M&T Stadium. So these are the kind of fights we have to make to get boxing back to prominence and to the general public's consciousness. Because as you said, UFC is doing remarkable, and that's why they're having boxers fight the UFC fighters. They're making out. They're making out good. And of course, it's all boxing. They're not doing anything MMA wise in the ring, but it's getting a lot of eyeballs and a lot of pay-per-view sales.
Can they make that Davis Russell fight happen?
Of course they can make it happen. But truth be known, Floyd doesn't want it to happen right now. The blueprint is Floyd waits for the most opportune moment, the highest reward, lowest risk type fights. It's brilliant. Nobody's done it better. Think about it. Who else has made as much money as Floyd Mayweather in the ring? Nobody. If ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. You bring up an interesting. Go ahead, Gary. I'll cut you off. Go ahead, Gary.
Oh no, I was going to say, when you ask a question like that, I don't even know how you follow that up, because it's like you could make the case. Yeah, he spends a lot, but man, he makes enough money to spend. And
yeah.
I can't think of any other boxer besides him. It's to me, it's like Ray Charles owning his own masters. He's really made an art out of it in terms of the money that he's made, and in a sense has been able to keep with some of his oddities that we from time to time, that he still finds a way to get paid.
He bet on himself and bought himself out of the contract with Bob Arum.
Mm-hmm.
Explain that. That's interesting. Go ahead, explain that a little bit.
Well, when he first came out the Olympics, he was the bronze medalist, as people remember. They say he should have won the gold, but they gave him the bronze. So he signed with Bob Arum's top-ranked promotions for a few years. He realized then that I probably need to cut out the middleman. So he bought himself out for $650,000, sent cash in a duffel bag to Bob Arum's office. Bob Arum took it. He only asked for $500,000. Floyd sent $650,000. Bought himself out his contract, started promoting himself, bet on himself. And that's what you should do when you can do it. And he surrounded himself with people that were knowledgeable in the game. Leonard Ellaby, who graduated from, I believe, Spingarn.
Yeah, he's DC guy.
That's right. That's his brain trust. Of course, Al Heyman, Harvard educated.
Mm-hmm.
His financier and mentor is what's the guy name? Billionaire guy. Caucasian billionaire guy. You know what I'm talking about. Can't remember his name. But yeah, he is the mentor to Floyd for his investments.
Mm-hmm.
Can't go wrong with that. So yeah, he spends a lot, but he makes a lot too.
He makes a lot. Yes. And I gotta agree with you. Everything that he does is calculated.
It is.
And it's very well thought out. So I give him all the credit in the world. Matter of fact, is not only being a great champion, but now he has switched over and become a great promoter, a businessman of boxing, and he's doing some great things. I just wish and hope that the boxing game can come back and be like it used to be.
No, it never will. Now it's the business of boxing. It's not a take on all comers like they used to do with the round robin, the four
Mhm.
kings ran. Well, let's start with your guy Leonard. Okay, Leonard.
Hey, Gary, do you sense a little bit of resentment when he
animosity.
is talking to me about Ray Leonard?
Just begrudgingly.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Leonard could have did a whole lot more for the area. That's all I'm saying. Even his own brothers, Kenny Leonard and Roger Tate, he should have done a whole lot more for this area. I'm sorry, should have. But anyway, let's start with Leonard. Hagler, may you rest in peace. Hearns, and then Duran. Those were the four kings. They fought the round robin. We don't see that anymore. We're not going to see that anymore because it's the business of boxing. Now you want to get the highest profile fight, the highest reward, lowest risk that you can. It's not a game. Boxing is not a game. You can play boxing. So if you can get out the faculties intact, like Mayweather has done.
Yes. Hey, let me ask you a question. And I've asked you this before, and you say you hate to do the what ifs with me, but because you're my friend, you said you would try to do it with me. So I you look at his face, Gary. I know he don't want me to do it, Gary. Look, I'm going to give Mayweather all the credit in the world. He is absolutely one of the best discombobulating. No argument about it. If he is in a round robin with
don't do this.
With Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, Roberto Duran, Tommy Hearns, and let me put one more in. Just let me put one more in. Wilfred Benitez.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Aaron Pryor.
No, because he puts a problem in every fight because you don't know what he's gonna do when he fights you.
Because he don't need it.
Huh?
He didn't either.
Yeah. He's throwing punches from angles he don't even know he's throwing from.
Gary, as I've told John many times, I don't like to do the comparison across generations, across eras, because it's not fair. It's only hypothetical. It's only subjective opinion. I don't know. You don't know. We think we know, but we don't really know. So let's just call it like it is. Floyd Mayweather is the best of this generation.
Okay, that's fair. Now let me ask you this: of that previous generation,
right? Of that previous generation, I mean, how far you want to go back?
Let's take the 80s. In the 80s, who's the best welterweight in the 80s, and who's the best middleweight?
Oh well, you got to go with Leonard for the best welter.
Okay.
And for the middle, you got to go with Hagler.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you and I will agree that Ray beat Hagler on that April 9, 1987, correct?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that at all. You're a good person. Witness, a good lawyer too. No, I don't. Very controversial to this day.
Yeah.
What's funny about that is of all the fights of Leonard's that I saw, that I always thought that was one that will always have the biggest gray area because, there's a part of me that really thought Hagler won that fight. I'll be honest. As much as we're talking, and I'm talking about a guy from my neighborhood, and I still thought Hagler might have won that fight, and I was kind of shocked at the outcome of that. And of course, the story is Hagler never fought again. I mean, he was done. And
right.
I think the sad part about that is that as much as it helped Sugar Ray's legend, that it really exposed kind of that ceiling that some boxers like Hagler, who he hoped to break through, just couldn't because of the politics and the popularity of some boxers among the judges that no matter what, they were going to vote for him. I mean, they were going to, basically, win fights for him no matter what.
Well, did you just read or hear how they acknowledged that a lot of the Olympic fights were fixed?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's. I
And
mean,
I think
to me, that it was almost like reading that water is wet. I mean, it's. I could think of a lot of fights in the Olympics that. I mean, heck, go back to like the Sphinxes back then, when I think there was like a fight, one of the fights that they almost scored the other way, and now and everybody was like, how could you not give it to him because of how good he was, how dominant they were, and it's just like Olympic figure skating or something like that. It's fixed. Everybody can see that it's fixed on some level. It's like, what do you want to believe, me or your lying eyes or something when it comes to judging?
right.
Didn't Roy Jones get robbed at the Olympics? Wasn't that the case one year, one of those Olympics?
Exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, he's the one I was trying to remember too.
Mm-hmm.
Roy Jones.
88. And indelibly etched in my mind because that was the year one of my brothers got killed. And so I'm looking at television at that fight, gold medal bout, and they robbed Roy, and he got so despondent, he put the towel over his head, over his face, and started crying. I started crying with him. I said, oh my God, I just felt his pain, and I was thinking about my own brother at the same time. So fast forward 1988, fast forward 2 years ago, when I hooked up with Roy Jones over in Baltimore, I told him that same story. I said, you know something? That really made you great. I said, you was going to be great anyway, but maybe that was the fuel to make you greater. And you know what he said? He says, that's exactly right. He said he would never leave it up to the decision of the judges again. And as you see, Roy Jones is one of the GOATs.
Yes.
Time. Okay. Don't get it twisted. His first 10 years, untouchable.
Yep.
Didn't lose rounds. But Father Time and Mother Nature are both undefeated.
Yeah. I tell people, it's funny you bring that up. You see a lot of these guys that come back and they want to return as boxers, and you look like Roy Jones, and then I'll even say, Ray Leonard or whoever.
Well, really,
they always, huh?
Really, you put Ray in that category too? No, I'm just being facetious.
But we're going to cut that part out the segment, to be honest with you. But anyway, look, so all of them, when they were champs, had tremendous speed, reflexes, and defense. They were unbelievable. And I tell people there's only one boxer that I can remember, Discombobulating, you or Gary, you can tell me, I only can remember one that was successful in his comeback, very, really, really successful, I'm talking about, was George Foreman. And I say he was successful because what every boxer loses, even Ali, put Ali in the same thing. They lose their speed, they lose their reflexes. But as you get older and you become an older man, you get strong. You get that old man strength. George Foreman was already strong. He never had speed, but he definitely got stronger as he got older. So that's why I said it made him great, even more greater when he came back to be a champion. He wasn't going to lose any speed, but he was definitely going to hit you harder. And he already hit like a brick house. So it was only going to get worse.
You're right. No, that's the prime example. Actually, I was on our colleagues Butch McAdams' radio show in Northeast DC, 4th and 8th Street. Remember that?
Yep.
I was doing prediction at the time, and so I picked Tommy Morrison to beat George Foreman. People thought I was crazy, but that's what happened. I said because Tommy Morrison was more athletic, he's going to stay out of harm's way.
Mm-hmm.
I turned around and said George Foreman is going to regain the heavyweight championship by knocking out Michael Moore in the 10th round.
Mm-hmm.
McAdams said, man, that's never going to happen, man. If that happens, I'll wash your car in the wintertime. And I told Butch that about 6 months ago, because I know styles make fights. Okay. Back in the 80s, when I really got into it, betting, and man, I'd be a rich man now if they had the online betting then. Instead of going to Vegas, Atlantic City, I picked Duran over Leonard, your boy, the first time. I
You
turned around,
Rob.
and picked Leonard over Duran the second time. I picked Leonard over Hearns. I picked Hagler over Hearns. I picked Hearns over Duran. I picked Michael Spinks over Dwight Braxton.
Huawei. Yep.
Styles make fights. So I saw all of that.
Yep.
Man, I was paying off car notes. You know what I'm saying? I should have been buying houses. That's what I should have been doing. But I was paying off car notes because, I impressed them about 25, 26-year-old, living the life. But my point being, styles make fights even to this day. So I had been telling you over the years about Pacquiao.
Mm-hmm. You sure have.
He would lose, right? I didn't predict this last one. That was off the radar for me. I didn't know this guy Ugas was like that. But again, Father Time, Mother Nature catches up to you. So I'm glad that Manny Pacquiao has officially retired. I hope he doesn't come back. He runs and wins presidency of the Philippines, which I think is what he's going to do.
Yeah. But you mentioned some very interesting fights, man. Some very interesting fights. A lot of fun. Go ahead, Gary. What you got, man? I did it again. I cut you off. I get talking. I can't shut up.
No, I mean, no, you got him going about some other things. No, I have no problem with that. My question is, I guess, has to do with Larry Holmes. And when you were talking about Foreman and his comeback, I've always felt like Larry Holmes has never quite gotten his due as a champion. Maybe because of when he came up, who he beat, and because the division was, I don't know, kind of went through a lull. But I still feel like he beat the guys that were in front of him for a long time. The same way like Joe Louis, and it kind of, and I was reminded of this. Probably a year before Ali passed, there was a tribute. Sports Illustrated did a tribute to him here in Louisville, where they had named an award for him and such. And Foreman and Holmes were there. I want to say there were a couple other heavyweight champions, but Foreman had kind of brought up the fact that Holmes might have been one of the most unheralded longtime heavyweight champions, and it really got me to thinking. It's like, this guy, he was champion for several years running, beat everybody in front of him, but you never really hear him mentioned right off the bat among greatest heavyweights. And longevity, I'd say he's got to get some kind of dap for his longevity in a sport like this.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Unsung, unheralded, underappreciated. He would beat a lot of these guys today. Larry Holmes, in my opinion, had probably the best jab in boxing. I mean, you couldn't get past that jab, man. And you know who he learned it from and perfected it, don't you?
Go ahead and say it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ali.
Oh,
yes.
I mean,
that was his sparring partner.
Former sparring partner. And, the thing about that fight between them, it was like, I mean, it says a lot about Ali and his ability to take a punch, but it really showed just how powerful a puncher that Holmes was, and nobody really knew that about him. If I'll tell you what, a lesser guy than Ali would have gone down quickly, and Ali for one was one that admitted that Holmes was like one of the hardest punchers he ever encountered this side of George Foreman.
Yeah. What I really admire about Larry is he took it easy on out at the end, because he could have really destroyed that man. He kept looking at the referee like, man, you better stop this. So he would pull his punches, just enough, to keep Ali from countering, but at the same time not doing any serious damage. And I really appreciate him for that. Same way with Roy Jones, another conscientious killer. Roy would tell the referees, man, don't make me do this. I was at Madison Square Garden on another occasion. And man, it seemed like Roy, he was about to walk away rather than hit this guy again. And he just shook his head like this, like, I don't want to do this. Guy went to sleep. He went up to the referee, said, I told you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's guys like that, that I take my hat off to them, because this is a vicious sport, man. And you don't want to kill anybody. That's why I don't like what's coming up Saturday with Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, rubber match. Deontay says he want to kill a guy in the ring. I don't think that's called for. It's still a gentleman's sport. We don't have to take it to the level, because we've seen fatalities. On the local level. You might remember this, Webby. B. Scotland. Do you remember fighting?
Oh, yes. B. Scotland used to be over in North Brentwood. He used to be at Brentwood Rec Center fighting over there. He was boxing over there. Yes, I remember him.
That's right. And he took a fight on ESPN one night in New York on board a ship, the USS Intrepid. First time they ever had a boxing match on board a ship. And he shouldn't have taken the fight against a guy that weighed more than him, more experienced, bigger, stronger. And he went into a coma. And I'm looking at TV like, wow, somebody should have stopped this fight. His trainers, the commission, it was just one-sided. And he went down and he never woke up again, man. And, that has affected me to this day. So, a lot of fighters listen to me now, and I tell them, it's over with for you, man. The way you got knocked out, it's over. Some have listened, some haven't, but everybody respects what I have to say.
That's interesting you bring that up. And I'm not trying to get into the delicacies of a conversation that you've had with boxers, but who are some of the boxers that you've had some discussions with?
I've spoken to all of them. Too Sharp, William Joppy.
I guess my better question is going to be like Too Sharp. I know Too Sharp, great guy, really good guy. But a lot of these guys, all of them love the sport, love it. So how is the conversation when you're talking to them, trying to get them to understand that you really don't want to do this anymore? I know it's a hard conversation, man. I know it has to be.
I can't convince anybody of anything. Fortunately, it's like Too Sharp with a high IQ realized that, he was at the tail end of his career, and, he wanted to keep his mental faculties intact.
Sure.
He bowed out, gracefully. A lot of guys haven't, call them Safeway fighters. They stuck around fighting for groceries.
Sure.
That was supposed to be a joke, but guess I keep my day job. Oh, I don't have a day job anymore. That's right.
Don't rub it in that you're retired, man. I got a couple more years ago. Don't rub it in.
3 years. Gary Graves, I have a master's degree in social work, and I was working with DC government for 37 years, and working with youth, as John said earlier, that's my forte. And so continue to do that. Matter of fact, we had an event last night. Should have invited you to it, but I'll invite you to a future one. It was at the old BET studio in Northeast DC.
Really?
Guns down, gloves up. Because
I wanted to ask you about that. I saw that on your Instagram post last week. Tell us a little bit about that, man. Tell us a little bit about that.
Matter of fact, I'll be going to Richmond doing the same thing. They call gloves over guns. So a lot of cities have gone to this initiative of having beefs resolved in the ring with gloves. Because as you remember back in the day, you might have lost, you might have won, but you lived. And nowadays, these youth, they're not doing these, they're using these.
Say it again. Say it again.
It's these guns that we get them to focus in on, and not these guns. It saves lives, builds character really to get beat by somebody physically, but then years later you might end up being friends with them. That's how it happened to me. I've got friends now from 50 years ago that I had beefs with, you know, and that's the point, that failure is not final, you know. So don't feel that because you got disrespected in front of somebody, your boys or your girl, that you got to retaliate to the point of taking somebody's life, you know. And fortunately, I've been able to impact on a lot of youth over the years to make good decisions, to walk away, you know. A lot have not, of course. You know, you can't save anybody. They can only save themselves, but you can plant that seed. And that's what's most important, to get them to be conscious of their actions that have consequences.
That's great, man. That's great. How long have you been involved with that program?
40 plus years. Yeah. I'll never stop being involved, man. Our youth is all we got, really. You know, it's our future.
When you have another function, please invite me. I will invite Gary too. Gary will fly in from Kentucky for it, you know. So
I'll drive. I'll drive.
Matter of fact, Gary,
I'm not getting on a plane right now.
okay. Matter of fact,
because I might get in a fight on a plane.
Matter of fact, prior to the pandemic, I was supposed to be at the Muhammad Ali Center. So we're going to revisit that in Louisville, because they're having pro boxing events there, from what I understand. Yeah.
There are a couple of venues. Old Freedom Hall is hosted a couple of cards, and that's a great place to watch a fight. If you ever want to get a sense of how it used to be in those days, you know, where you had like the old lights hanging over and the ring announcers like yourself, they still have those cards from time to time, and I've been to one, and they are great things to watch.
Now that's where the Louisville Cardinals are.
That's where they used to play back in the day, at the old fairgrounds. You know, now they've got this sparkling downtown arena, but they still use Freedom Hall for a lot of basketball and boxing and that sort of thing. And John, they even had wrestling there.
Wrestling.
Yeah, because
a Discombobulating. I don't know if you remember back when we were over College Park, we put on a couple pro wrestling matches over there, man.
I remember that. Yes.
and I'm thinking about trying to do it again, man. I'm thinking about it, and I will need a ring announcer.
I could refer somebody to you.
Wow.
I'm tried and true boxing, man. That's it. You know.
I'm just trying to get you to come out and be with me for one time. I need a celebrity. I need somebody that's the best of the best to be in the ring with me to sell it to all the rest. Oh, how about that?
Wow.
Mr. Jones, I'm going to ask, or Discombobulating, excuse me. There's a buddy of mine. I don't know. You probably know him very well, Gary Williams.
I'm his mentor.
I figured you probably were.
Digital
Williams.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I got him involved in boxing 30 plus years ago.
And he loves wrestling. He loves wrestling.
That's
a savant.
what I'm thinking about. Actually, John, he would be perfect. He would be perfect.
Well, between you and Gary, maybe y'all can make that happen for me, because I'm going to need a ring announcer for this. We're gonna do it.
All right.
You and Gary both know me. If I say I'm going to do something, we're going to do it.
Thing about you over the years, as I found out, is it may not happen when you say it, but you're going to do it.
This is true. This is true. This is true.
John's middle name is Eventually.
Hey, you know what? Discombobulating.
And I say that lovingly, John. I know.
Oh man, I love both of you. There's no problem. I mean, go ahead.
We have this whole podcast. I remember when we talked about this a year ago, and just because of different circumstances, but here we are. You would eventually make it happen, and here we are.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. Look, I want to do this real quick, and Gary doesn't know I'm going to do this, but let me say this to you, Discombobulating, HJ. You're a pioneer, and there's something else that went on today that I wanted to get your feedback on is something very dear to Gary. Bubba Wallace won the Talladega race today, I think. And Gary, you tell me if I'm wrong. I'm out in the middle of the water again without a boat.
Go
So
ahead.
I think he's the first black, one of the first blacks in a long time to do something like that. Gary has interviewed Bubba Wallace. He's interviewed a few other black NASCAR race car drivers who were first, and just like you, a first, and somebody that's doing something that's really great. I want to get the feedback from both of you about the importance of what happened today with Bubba Wallace. And Gary, forgive me if I got the story wrong, so you got to forgive me.
No, you're right. If I could lead off on that, I'm going to say it like this. I think it is huge on many levels because in a lot of my years of covering NASCAR, through all of NASCAR's diversity initiatives, the Drive for Diversity, D for D for short, that helped develop talents like Bubba Wallace from when he was racing trucks to trying to get minority owners involved in some way, shape, or form. I mean, heck, if you got a chance to catch any of the NBC broadcast today, if you looked at the pit crew, the tire changers, gas can guys, I mean, you saw minority representation, and from time to time, you might see Black women of color involved in some of these. That's something I didn't see when I first started covering this race in the early 90s. Today, I think it was really, really huge for Bubba Wallace from a lot of standpoints because of what he's gone through being in this series. For the noose incident not too long ago, the noose that was hanging from a garage that he didn't know it was there. He was told it was there, but it was hanging from a garage door. They said it was tied to a pull down for a door or something. But look, we know what a noose means. They're sugarcoating it. He still faces resentment because of his outspokenness about the Confederate flag, which NASCAR removed. So for him to win today in his home state at Talladega, where the Confederate flag was still being waved outside the track, I think it's huge. And it basically shows that it can be done much in the same way that Wendell Scott did it back in the 60s. And, and having talked with his family over the years, because, he's from down there in Southern Virginia, and talking with guys like Bill Lester and Willie T. Ribbs, on the IndyCar side, that there was always a question about who was going to be the next one. And nobody should be surprised that it's Bubba Wallace, because he needed to get with the right team. He's got backing of Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin as co-owners, and you need a little bit of luck. And sometimes you create your own luck. And I mean, you saw, even though rain, shortened the race, it might not have given them the full race, but you take them as you can get them. And I think this will be a significant thing to show somebody can finally say, I did it. He can say, I finally did it. And all of the guys before them that have tried, can feel a sense of pride in helping that and knowing that it wasn't for naught what they did.
Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't know about that. This is news to me, and I applaud him for that and his entire crew. What sport do you know that they've allowed us to get into that we have not excelled? All of them. Once we're allowed, once the playing field is a little bit more level, and it has not been for me. I belie the stereotype of the thick-lipped and tongue-tied African-American male, as they seem to think we can't handle the microphone and not articulate enough. I know not to split a verb. I speak the King's English pretty well, so we need to be mentors to others to follow us, because I know I don't have 33 more years. So with that in mind, I actually have an initiative. Hopefully it leads into a reality show called So You Think You Want to Be a Ring Announcer, huh? And the premise of it is cities that I go to announce in anyway, I'm going to have open auditions for ring announcers, male and females, whatever gender, doesn't matter, because that brings another demographic as well, you know. And so I think it's going to take off. And those persons that don't make it, I'm going to use my social work skill set to help them in other areas of life so we can all be winners. That's what I'm trying to do.
Powerful for both of you. And I appreciate both of you said about that, because it's history. Sitting here talking to history, Gary, sitting here watching history. And Mr. Graves, you are also part of history, being an African-American man in the field of journalism and all some of the great things you're doing there. So let's not take that lightly either as well, my friend. I'll say it for you. You're too humble of a guy. So I'll say it for you, the great things you do. But let me ask you,
because you have to take some credit for yourself, John, too.
I don't.
Not many guys, period, will take the steps that you have to create your own leagues rather, and have that kind of influence. And it goes beyond basketball, John. I mean, I've seen what you've done off the court. What you do in the community with food drives, cooking all those turkeys at Thanksgiving. So we owe a debt of gratitude to you too.
Well, the kind words, but like I said, I just try to stay in the background and not let anybody see this ugly face, man. I just try to do the best I can, man. Hey, but
turkey, Gary.
Huh? What'd you say?
Turkey, Gary.
Say that again.
Sometimes John is a turkey, Gary.
Oh, that's yeah. And we're gonna have to wrap up on that. But when I come home, I'm hoping that John has a turkey ready for me and that soul food lunch that he owes me.
We will make it happen. Let me ask you all one quick question, real quick. Discombobulating. Washington football team, do they win this week against New Orleans or lose?
They'll win.
Gary, win or lose?
Win.
All right, we got two saying Washington wins. One last one. Does Dallas win again this week?
Who they play?
I don't know. Who do they play, Pitt? Wow. He's not answering because he doesn't know.
Dallas looks. I'll say from my standpoint, I think Dallas wins. Dallas is back. As much as it pains a Washington football team fan to say that, but Dallas is back, and that makes the rivalry better when Washington wins.
I'll say Washington loses, Dallas wins, and Notre Dame ties.
On that note, Till next time, folks. First of all, again, we want to thank Henry Discombobulating Jones for his history lesson, his perspective, his contributions, his ongoing influence on the next generation. I thank John Webster for helping to bring you on to us so others will know about what you're doing and what you've done. And of course, we thank Mr. John Pitt for making all this look pretty, all three of us on all these different screens, wherever you are, John. So again, next week, hey, first of all, Mr. Jones, come on back and see us, and definitely
Please.
In touch because I want to see you when you come to Louisville, and I have the pleasure of taking you through the Ali Center.
Oh man, thank you so much. Look forward to it.
Hey, well, let me just say this. Thank you, HJ, Discombobulating. Thank you. We had another great show this week. We enjoyed ourselves. Everybody, enjoy yourselves this upcoming week. Watch a lot of sports. Have a lot of fun. Be safe. Be careful. And we'll see you again next week. Take care.
One more thing, ladies and gentlemen, for all the news you can use when you want to produce, always listen to John Webster, and Gary Graves on the Daily Deuce. Peace.
All right. Thank you.